Hey, indie filmmakers, I'm Griffin Hammond.
I'm Nick Bodmer, and today we're trying to solve audio issues, camera issues, and video encoding issues. Can we fix them?
I hope
Griffin,
we can.
we fix them? Let's find out. We actually don't know if we fix them. That's the scary part right now, is we think we fixed them.
Yeah, there's a couple issues dealing directly with this production right now that's happening in front of us.
That's right.
Starting with, you and I are both using some equipment that we haven't used before. And I'm actually recording this on a microphone that I've never used for the podcast.
You're switching
before.
mics on me?
Well, I'll talk about this in depth a little bit later, but I am now, at the moment, recording on a Neumann TLM 103, which is an $1,100 studio mic.
I think I'm familiar with this microphone, yeah. Those are commonly found in radio stations, etc., I believe.
Yeah, they look really nice, and they sound really nice. They're very popular amongst voiceover artists. And I'm doing a studio mic test right now. So normally I would be shooting with my blue baby bottle that you're using, I imagine you're using right now.
You're correct.
And but today I just thought, why not try the expensive mic that I happen to have handy?
So you sound better than me. Oh, I see.
Maybe.
Thanks, friend. I also have a cold, which is not making me sound good, probably. Or maybe it makes me sound better. I don't know.
And tell us about the new equipment you are bringing to the podcast today.
This is the first podcast I'm shooting on the Sony A7 III, and I've been spending the last 45 minutes like, how do I change my workflow? Do you know what the biggest problem is switching from a Panasonic to a Sony camera when it comes to doing a podcast? Can you guess?
Recording limit?
Okay, two problems. I'm running a stopwatch to make sure I don't forget about when to hit record again. But yeah, no LCD that I can see. So I was like, what do I do? But it turns out
that's kind of like
connect...
the new Lumix S1 is the same thing. It's a full frame camera and it doesn't have a flip out LCD either.
Give me a flip out LCD, man. Come on. It's killing me. But what I've done is I have hooked my A7 III up via USB-C to my PC, and Sony has a remote image capture software, so I actually can see my screen on my computer screen here. I tried to do it on my Mac, which would be better because normally I film from this side and I shoot this way because this is ugly back here and this is pretty over here. But couldn't get it to work in 30 minutes, so switched over to the PC. It worked. Hey, we're recording, so I'm going to call it a win. Now, am I recording in the right format? I don't know. Am I recording in the right resolution? I don't know. I mean, we're throwing this together kind of willy-nilly, so we'll see.
Well, it's a good thing. Like, I think it's a good illustration of why you need to be comfortable with your gear before. I mean, it's hard even to set
before
up
you do
a camera that
serious projects that will go on YouTube. Yeah.
No, I mean, like,
good work, me.
Even when we know what we're doing with a camera, like with a camera that I've been using for years, I still have to like fiddle around with the settings for a few minutes before rolling. And you hear about a lot of people that like go out and buy a brand new Panasonic camera or a brand new Sony camera and then just like go on their world tour shoot. And they're figuring it out right there in the hotel room. It can take a while to get comfortable. So we have no idea what you're shooting right now.
I have some idea. I think I've done it right, but the menu systems are definitely much different than Panasonic, so mistakes I'm sure have been made.
Well, yeah,
but
I
like
heard
being able to see it live on the screen. I got a histogram. It's kind of cool.
In fact, you're probably seeing it bigger than you would have on an LCD. Like,
oh yeah.
You can probably tell that you're in focus.
Appear to be.
And what is your
autofocus actually? But
so you're in autofocus mode. So we'll see if it stays on you.
It keeps up. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And what are you doing? Are you in like auto white balance and?
Yes, sir. I am in auto white balance. I know that's a no-no, but I wasn't going there today.
I'm not making fun of you for it.
Well, so a long time ago, I used to shoot in auto white balance for the podcast, and you smashed that out of me, and I went to manual and back to auto right now because there's too much to deal with. But I am in manual shooting mode, so I've manually set my shutter speed and the aperture and ISO.
Nice.
So hopefully this is relatively exposed properly. It looks okay to me.
Well, I learned long ago not to use auto white balance because so many cameras would change so quickly. But I think we then determined that your Panasonic G85 that you were shooting with, and probably a lot of the Panasonics I shoot with, when you're rolling, they kind of slowly change their auto white balance. So it's not really a big deal the way that I thought it would be. I guess we'll find out what the Sony does.
We will find out, and you'll be mad at me.
Well,
but yeah, we recorded the podcast last week, and my audio was all screwed up, you said, when you got it.
Yeah. Actually, I can't remember which episode it was. If it was the Pixel Stick episode or if it was the courtroom
I think it was
episode.
The courtroom episode, because we were kind of recorded in a weird order there.
Yeah. But yeah, you sent me the audio, and this was a weird issue we hadn't had on the podcast before. I'm trying to remember when we discovered it, because I think John Luna was editing that episode, and I think he was having trouble syncing. That's what it was. He was taking your video clip and your audio file, your WAV file that you send me, and right-click on both of them in Final Cut, ask to sync, and it just wasn't doing it. Or it was doing the thing where when it fails, it doesn't tell you it fails, but it just puts the video clip at the front and the video audio clip at the front, and they're not synced. And so I started to manually sync it because I was like, well, that's not hard. Let's just find where the thing begins. And pretty quickly, it just looked like it was off. And so we played it back, and your voice was like pitch shifted up 10%.
Which might
You're
be
a higher
good. I don't
pitch.
know.
It was funny, though, because clearly I know your voice better than John does. Because John was like, is it wrong?
Well, you've been listening to my voice for way too long.
Yeah. Well, and you sound especially deep today.
Well, it's because I have a cold. Well, did it sound more like I did in middle school? Because you did know me back then.
It sounded like a young Nick Bodmer speaking
young
quickly.
Nick Bodmer. So what I think happened, and we're not sure, hopefully we fixed it, we'll find out when this podcast is done, is that was when I had switched from my Mac laptop to the new Mac Mini for recording. And I'm guessing I got the sample rate screwed up somewhere in there. The recording was set to auto sample rate, so it shouldn't have happened, but I don't know. So we've manually defined the 48K sample rate across the board on my Zoom recorder and in my recording software. So we did a quick, what did we do? We did a quick test clip before we started recording the actual episode, which I sent to you so you could look at it and say, yes, it looks like whatever transfer issues are gone.
Yeah,
so
it sounded normal.
See.
I guess I don't even know what auto sample rate in Audio Hijack means. Like,
I think it means it should be able to detect the sample rate that's coming in and set the recording appropriately.
I've never said it before until I was just doing a mic test and realized I could that it's always by default set to auto, and that maybe I should set it to 48,000 hertz, 48K hertz for my latest test. So I did that.
Yep.
But it was interesting because the solution in Final Cut wasn't bad at all, and it wasn't a problem that you sent me this footage with that was slightly sped up. I almost feel like it was exactly 10% sped up. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but all we had to do was Final Cut makes it pretty easy to manually stretch a clip in retiming mode, so you can just I just pulled it to the end of your video file until it looked like the waveforms between the scratch track and the waveform on your good track, your sped up track, matched each other. And Final Cut lets you either choose to preserve pitch or not. And if I were to preserve pitch, it would have been a problem. It would have still been high pitched, and it would have been stretched out. You know what happens? You know that thing that happens when you stretch out audio?
Yeah, it gets a little tinny, weird, artifacty sounding.
Yeah, it gets like those little, it's like, I assume it's just like micro gaps. It just has to like insert silence, tiny little bits of silence to make sure that the pitch stays the same. But luckily we don't want the pitch to stay the same, so I just unclicked that, and then I think it's not doing any damage to the waveform. It's just stretching it out and playing it slower.
Right.
But it's still playing every part of it.
So we'll see if we fixed it. Do you think we did?
I think
What's
so.
your confidence level? As a percentage.
My confidence level on the audio is super high. I think we did a test, and so as long as you're recording right now, I think I feel like 95% chance the audio is fine. I feel less good about the video.
You're less good about my video, yeah.
Well, because you already told me that because of having to plug it into your PC that you're shooting this on the opposite side that you normally would. So I already know that I'll have to reverse your shot, or I'll have to reverse mine.
Yep.
to make us
Oh, and
look
by the
like
way,
we're
the
looking at
crop
each other.
did take. We were talking before the podcast started. He's like, "Is there anything if I reverse your shot that's going to be backwards, like words?" And I have the
Yeah.
sriracha poster right here, but the widescreen crop has taken out the letters. So Griffin, you're going to be able to flip me no problem.
So we think that what was showing on your LCD and maybe in your PC in
4
the
by 3.
software was a 4:3 full sensor
And then
readout, and then
once I hit record, it crops in.
yeah, it's not
Because you
you're
can
not
do
losing
photos
any
with this,
width.
too.
You don't think you just
It does not
cropped
look like it. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I'm doing that's unfair, before anyone watching this says, let's compare I'm shooting with a GH5S right now. Before you say, let's compare the GH5S shot that Griffin's doing and the A7 III shot that Nick is doing on his Sony, you're shooting in 1080, which is what we have always done for the podcast because it doesn't make a lot of sense for you to send me a 4K file.
Right.
Just because...
Just for the record, I think I'm recording in 1080. Right. We'll find out.
See. Just because it's easy for me, I don't have to send the file to myself. I am shooting in 4K 30, which will edit in 1080, but I still think my shot might look sharper if you really were to like punch it in and analyze it.
It was set up by you, who is a professional, and mine was set up by me, who is, with this camera, a total novice.
I have a light on myself, too. Let's see. I'll turn that off real quick. So this is what I look like in the dark. Very horrible.
Yeah, I didn't open my window to give me any little extra light. I should do that now, but I'm not going to because it would screw everything up. I have a backlight. I've got what do you call it? Hair light? Key light? I don't know.
It's not a key light if it's a backlight. It could be a hair light. Yeah.
See, look how nice the hair looks right here. That's the hair light, guys. No big deal.
I also had an audio issue this week, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on what might be causing it, because I'm still kind of in the midst of figuring it out.
Okay.
And it's for my next episode of Cheap Thing versus Expensive Thing, which is airing on Indie Mogul.
Which we need to talk about. Take a mental note.
Yeah. Well, the last episode came out last week. It was about ND filters.
I watched it yesterday. It was good.
I will say, just related to that, I am using a 2-stop ND filter on my lens right now, which is why when I turn off the lights, it looks pretty dark. I'm using the ND filter to compensate for all this light. This week is going to be a studio mic test, and so that's why I have this expensive microphone, and I'm testing it against a few different microphones, including the one I normally use. But the cheapest one I'm testing is this $50 microphone by a company called Fifine.
Okay.
And what we did is we went into the YouTube space, that studio space that's available to YouTubers like me in New York.
I've been there.
And I set up all 4 microphones I was testing. They're kind of like coming in, like each one on a different mic stand, like in a cross, and they were all centered together. And so I was just doing a bunch of tests where I talked into them, and we played a guitar in front of them to see what sounded best. Problem is, the cheap one, when I isolated each track to monitor, I was getting that it kind of sounded like when cell phones go off in front of a microphone.
Yeah.
That little like hiss or like squeal.
It's like a digital pulsing almost, right?
Yeah. Although then I realized it wasn't a phone because we all turned off our phones and it was still going, and it wasn't really that like, maybe there was a little bit of pulsing, but it was mostly just kind of a sustained like kind of horrible sound in the background.
Okay.
And so I moved the mic around. Sometimes it got louder. We tried making sure cables weren't crossing. We were looking
What
for
is the
power.
cable connecting this microphone? Is it an XLR cable?
It's a USB microphone.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I was going into it's a like type A USB, like the old type.
Yep.
Plugged into, I was actually going into my laptop, which is all USB-C, so I was using an adapter. But I also had a blue Snowball Ice, which is that circular $50 microphone that Blue makes.
Yep.
It's also USB, yeah. And it was going in the same way and no problems there. None of the other microphones were making this noise. And so one by one, we isolated all the variables, and eventually we just took the microphone out of the room because we thought, it doesn't seem to be the cable necessarily, although I guess I didn't have another cable to try. But I plugged it into different ports. We unplugged all the other mics. We took them away from all the other mics. But every time we record in the room, we were getting that noise. We thought maybe it's all like the Wi-Fi in this room or something. And we turned off our wireless mics and everything. So then we go out in the hallway in the YouTube space, and we're still getting it. We even tried plugging... I plugged my headphones directly into the microphone. The microphone has its own headphone jack.
Yep.
And I was still hearing it. So I thought, I mean, maybe the cable is somehow introducing it, but it's definitely happening on the mic side, not on like the computer side, I guess. And so I couldn't figure out why I was doing this. So we continued with the test. I just happened to get my hands on a second one, and did another test with it. I still heard it a little bit, but it kind of seemed like the second one wasn't doing it as much. And even when I switched the two cables, one of them was doing it more than the other. Like the cables were even, I don't know. I almost think the cable was acting like as an antenna and just picking up all this interference.
Yeah, my first thought is the cable shouldn't matter because the digital analog conversion is happening inside the microphone, right? So anything, the data stream out of the microphone into the computer, that's not going to change. You can't introduce noise at that point, right? The noise has to already be in the signal. But you're absolutely right. I think that cable could act as an antenna that is introducing noise earlier in the signal chain, somewhere in the analog signal chain. So it's probably just poor quality, which means bad shielding, or a trace that's, too much solder, so it's touching another trace, which is introducing noise into a preamp or something like that. So I think that is just indicative of a poor quality audio chain inside the microphone. That's the good and the bad thing with the USB microphones is, the digital to analog conversion happens right there. But if that stuff is cheap, you're definitely going to introduce noise. So
yeah,
I think that's a good reason to rank it poorly.
Right. Well, yeah. One weird thing that happened was, at one point I was just like, I'm trying to figure out what it could possibly be that's making this noise. And the microphone, it's weird. It has a little blue LED inside. And I think it's kind of a strange choice to put an LED inside the mic. And I thought, what are the odds that like the LED itself makes noise? So I thought, let me open this up and see if maybe it's like easy to break off the LED or something. We'll just find out if it, if I can remove that thing, maybe it removes the noise. And so I popped the thing open. You could take the whole metal. In fact, I should hold it up right now. This is the Fifine K670. And I unscrewed the windscreen. It's this big, thick metal windscreen. Actually, like the whole thing feels really substantial and nice for the price point. I took the windscreen off. Inside is just the microphone element soldered onto a little circuit board. The LED is like really embedded in the circuit board, so I realized there's no way I could remove it. But while I had the windscreen off, I did the test again, and the interference was more than ever. In fact, now it's like really bassy and deep interference, and if I like held it near a computer, it would just like go crazy. And I realized, like, is this big, thick metal windscreen actually like shielding in some way, protecting this microphone?
It could be, yeah.
But maybe that's just like you said.
Sounds
maybe
like
that's
poor quality audio circuit.
Yeah. It's going to pick up interference easily.
Toss it out. That's what I say.
I don't really understand. I don't know what they do to make these things not pick up interference. Like, I don't know why the blue Snowball at a similar price point doesn't do that so much. I mean, maybe if I took it apart, it would do that too.
Yeah, I mean, just signal path. I mean, there's ways to engineer electrical systems to reject noise, and there are ways to be cheap and not care about it, and you're going to introduce noise, so...
How are we doing on your 30-minute countdown?
I got 10 minutes. We're doing good.
Ooh. Well, then
should we thank our good sponsor and then talk about one other thing? Or no, you got something right now. Go.
Yeah. Before we mention our sponsor, I'll talk about this last issue that I'm dealing with, and it's that I'm going to be. Well, I'll see you this week in Las Vegas because I'm going to be at WPPI, the Wedding Photographer, Portrait Photographer Trade Show.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
And as always, I'm doing like a keynote presentation on my Mac, and this one's going to be about argon, going behind the scenes on the film I shot with the S1. And the problem I always have is I want to put my high quality 4K 60p film argon in the keynote presentation. And when it tries to play back, it just can't handle like both 4K and 60 very well within Keynote. So
Okay.
what I always end up doing is I kind of hate doing this because I'm like going to this presentation specifically to show off the quality of this film, but I drop it into Media Encoder and I just knock the whole thing down to 1080 30.
Yep.
But I realized there is one thing I could do that's kind of fun is in Media Encoder, you can also right click on the clip that you've brought in to convert, and you can interpret the footage differently. So I went ahead and I made one copy that was normal. It's dropping out frames to make it 1080 30. It's dropping out every other frame. But then I made a second copy where I interpreted the footage as 2997. So I think it'll make a perfectly like twice as long slow motion version of the film with no sound, and that way I could maybe put some clips of that in the PowerPoint.
Oh, that's
as well.
kind of cool. Yeah, so you can
I
really
should at least
kinda
take
show
advantage
off
of the fact that it was shot
the
in
frame
60,
rate. Yeah, exactly. And is it just the fact that Keynote can't handle it at that level? Like, could you jump out of Keynote and bring up VLC and have it play back properly?
Yeah, I probably could. And I think Keynote theoretically can handle it. Like, I don't think Keynote has a limit on file sizes or resolutions, or at least I can't find anything like that. I think it's just a matter of, can the computer do all these things at once? It does seem like my laptop can just play a file, but within Keynote it struggles. I think it's trying to do some other things.
Interesting.
And I also know I'm going to be giving this on a different, like someone else's laptop, so I'm just trying to make it as compatible as possible.
You got to keep it as compatible as possible. And is it going to even be on a 4K screen?
I'm sure it will be on a 4K screen. That's why I feel a little bit weird about doing it.
Yeah, that's frustrating then.
Yeah. But maybe I can be happy with, like, when we're showing video, maybe I'll be showing it in 1080, but when I show still frames in the PowerPoint, in the Keynote, that could be 4K.
Full quality. Exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah. Now let's thank our sponsor.
Hey Filmmakers is brought to you by Squarespace. Bring your stories to life with Squarespace, the easiest way to create an exceptional website, blog, portfolio, or online store.
In fact, as you know, GriffinHammond.com, my personal website, has been on Squarespace for a long time. If you haven't been to GriffinHammond.com, you should go and see all my latest videos. If you would like to do something cool on Squarespace, there is a special offer for Hey Indie Filmmaker listeners and viewers. You can try Squarespace free for 14 days and receive 10% off your first purchase just by going to squarespace.com/Griffin.
Don't go to squarespace.com/Nick. It doesn't do anything. Or it helps someone else that isn't me.
So we already mentioned WPPI. If anyone's going to be in Las Vegas going to that trade show, you should come see me speak. I'm going to speak at this Wednesday. Well, that's today when we release the podcast. So later today, if you're...
Get in your car. Go, go.
I'm speaking today at 2:30 and then tomorrow, Thursday, at 1:30 p.m. And I don't know if people know this about trade shows that are like this. It seems like WPPI is the same in this way compared to like NAB show or a lot of these shows. They charge you money to go, to register and get a badge to go on the show floor, which you can do. Mm-hmm. But it also seems like these shows always have free passes. That if you just like Google WPPI free pass 2019, they let all the like vendors on the show floor offer these free passes. I'm not really sure what the trade-off is. I'm sure you're giving them your email address. But if you want a way to come for free, you can definitely find those.
There's ways.
Yeah.
Google's your friend.
I've done that before. Yeah. And then the only other thing I was going to mention is to watch my full review of these studio microphones this week on Indie Mogul. So if you just keep an eye on the Indie Mogul channel, my next episode of Cheap Thing versus Expensive Thing should come out either tomorrow or Friday.
Beautiful. I'll look forward to that.
I don't know how much time is left on your Sony countdown.
3.5 minutes. You may stop and start.
No. I just want to ask you real quick about another technical difficulty you've had recently.
Go.
You were trying to fly a plane?
Yeah. Yep. So I've always thought it'd be great to be a pilot. And it always seemed like one of those things that, like, you just think, like, oh, that'd be cool, but it's impossible. And then, like, something clicked in my brain and said, it's not impossible. I could just go do it. So I signed up for a Discover Flying flight where you go up and fly a little plane and see how you like it. And
I assume
there.
this is someone in the plane with you flying.
No, they just give you a plane. They say, good luck. You'll probably figure it out. No, yeah, there's an instructor
say, here's a
in there
flyer.
with you. We did the pre-flight. We walked around, checked the fuel, did all that, got on the plane, and the plane would not turn on. Couldn't start the engine, so we had to scratch the flight and rescheduled to do that next week.
So what I think is funny is, like, a lot of your family and friends, when you were talking about this online, were saying, like, this is a sign, don't do it. Like, people are so scared of flight. But I gotta think, surely taking a flight in a small plane like that per minute of flight is gotta be safer than, like, you driving your kids to daycare or, like, preschool. Like,
I have
don't
done.
you think?
It's a little hard to say, and it depends who you ask and how you slice the data as to whether or not it's more or less dangerous than a car. I came down on it's probably a little more dangerous than driving a car, but only because I think some people are stupid. I think if you're smart and safe, you'll be fine. And I did go on Reddit and say, hey, so I was going to go on this flight and the plane wouldn't start. Should I be concerned? And everybody's like, no. If it's cold outside and you don't preheat the engine for 30 minutes, that's just how these things work. Once it's running, it won't stop just because it wouldn't start. So there you go. Wish me luck.
Yeah. So I guess we'll have to wait till your first flight to decide, like, if you're
gonna
how much you like it, if you're going to pursue it.
Exactly, because it's pricey. It is a little expensive to get your private pilot's license, because you got to play. It's like 40 to 60 hours of flight time, and you're paying for the plane and the fuel and the instructor, and so we'll see.
Yeah,
could be fun.
Well, it's funny, we're
flight videos.
We're recording this a few days early, but by the time this airs, I will already be in Las Vegas with you. So I imagine next week we'll have an episode of us recording together.
Exactly right. And depending when we record it, I might have taken that flight already.
So,
well, I'm down to 40 seconds before this camera automatically stops recording. So,
okay,
that's a great feature because it keeps the podcast short.
We should just make a podcast that's called, like, 30-minute time limit.
Don't worry, Sony didn't have to pay those taxes in Europe, so it's all worth it. Goodbye, my friends. Mr. Hammond, we will see you next week.
Yeah, see you later.
I'm also shooting the wrong way this time. My USB-C cable, since I have to go to my PC and on my Mac, is not long enough to go to where I normally shoot from.
Okay. Are you reversible?
I have a Sriracha poster in the view, so Sriracha will be reversed, I guess.